The Last Stand. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before Captain Area Chen's eyes, broken only by the sinister silhouettes of the Sk-3 invasion fleet. From her position in the cockpit of the experimental warship Defiant, the alien armada seemed to blot out the stars themselves, a dark tide threatening to engulf what remained of humanity. Aria's hands tightened on the controls, her knuckles white beneath her flight suit. The weight of her responsibility pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. She was all that stood between Earth and total annihilation. Defiant, status report, she commanded, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her gut. The ship's AI responded immediately, its tone calm and clinical. All systems operational, Captain. Stealth systems engaged and holding. No indication that the Sk-3 have detected our presence. Aria nodded, allowing herself a small measure of relief. The Defiant was humanity's most advanced warship, a prototype vessel equipped with technology that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. It was fast, agile, and most importantly, virtually undetectable. But even with all its advancements, it was still just one ship against thousands. As she surveyed the enemy fleet, Aria's mind wandered to the events that had led to this moment. The Sk-3 had appeared without warning 6 months ago, their massive ships darkening Earth's skies. Humanity had fought back with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. One by one, Earth's defenses had fallen. Major cities lay in ruins, billions were dead or missing, and those who remained fought a desperate guerrilla war against the alien occupiers. In those chaotic early days, Aria had been tasked with taking the Defiant on its maiden voyage, a shakedown cruise to test its systems before joining the fight. She and her small crew had been light years away when they received the distress call. Earth had fallen. They were ordered to stay hidden, to survive, and to find a way to strike back. Now, after months of hit-and-run attacks and gathering intelligence, Aria was alone. Her crew had sacrificed themselves in a daring mission to destroy a Sk-3 supply depot, buying her the chance to make this final, desperate attempt to save their homeworld. Captain, the AI's voice cut through her reminiscence. I'm detecting increased activity in the Sk-3 fleet. They appear to be preparing for a major operation. Aria leaned forward, studying the holographic display that sprang to life before her. The alien ships were indeed on the move, forming up into attack formations. Her blood ran cold as she realized their trajectory. They're preparing for the final assault on Earth, she whispered, horror and determination warring within her. The Defiant's AI confirmed her assessment. Correct, Captain. At their current speed, they will reach Earth in approximately 72 hours. Aria's mind raced. 3 days. She had 3 days to somehow stop an armada of over 10,000 warships. The impossibility of the task threatened to overwhelm her, but she pushed the feeling aside. She was humanity's last hope, and she would not go down without a fight. Defiant, run battle simulations. I want options for engaging the enemy fleet. The AI complied, and Aria watched as scenario after scenario played out on the holographic display. In each one, the Defiant was destroyed, sometimes taking a handful of enemy ships with it, but never making a significant dent in the Sk-3 forces. Conventional engagement is not recommended, Captain, the AI concluded. Our chances of survival, let alone victory, are less than 0.01%. Aria nodded grimly. She had expected as much, but seeing it laid out so starkly was sobering. Then we'll have to be unconventional. What do we know about Sk-3 weaknesses? The AI began listing off the intelligence they had gathered over the past months. The Sk-3 relied heavily on their advanced shielding technology, which made their ships nearly impervious to human weapons. They operated on a hierarchical command structure, with lower-ranked ships slavishly following the orders of their superiors. And they seemed to have difficulty adapting to rapidly changing situations, often faltering when faced with unexpected tactics. As Aria listened, the kernel of a plan began to form in her mind. It was risky, borderline suicidal, but it was the only chance they had. Defiant, plot a course to intercept the Sk-3 fleet. We're going to introduce some chaos into their ranks." The ship acknowledged the command, and Arya felt the subtle shift as the engines engage. As they moved closer to the enemy armada, she began to outline her plan to the AI. "We'll use hit-and-run tactics, targeting their command ships. If we can disrupt their chain of command, we might be able to throw the entire fleet into disarray." "A sound strategy, Captain," the AI replied. "But our weapons are not powerful enough to penetrate their shields." Arya allowed herself a small, grim smile. "We're not going to use our weapons. We're going to use theirs." She explained her idea. The Defiant would use its superior maneuverability and stealth capabilities to get in close to the SK-3 command ships. Then, they would use the ship's advanced electronic warfare suite to hack into the alien vessel's systems and turn their weapons against their own fleet. It was a desperate plan, full of unknowns and potential points of failure. But as the massive forms of the SK-3 ships grew larger in her viewport, Arya knew it was their only hope. Initiating stealth approach, the AI announced as they closed in on the outer edges of the alien fleet. Arya's heart pounded in her chest as they weaved between the massive alien vessels. The Defiant stealth systems were holding, but one wrong move, one moment of detection, and it would all be over. They approached their first target, a large, ornate ship that the AI identified as a likely command vessel. Arya's fingers flew over the controls, initiating the hack. Long seconds ticked by as the Defiant systems worked to breach the alien defenses. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the cockpit. "We've been detected," the AI warned. "Enemy ships are moving to intercept." Arya gritted her teeth, willing the hack to work faster. Just as the first enemy weapons fire began to streak past the Defiant, the AI announced, "Hack successful. We have control of their weapon systems." Without hesitation, Arya ordered, "Fire everything they've got at the nearest SK-3 ships." The command ship's weapons came to life, unleashing a barrage of energy beams and missiles at its own allies. Confusion rippled through the alien fleet as ships began to explode, taken completely by surprise by the friendly fire. Arya didn't wait to admire her handiwork. "Next target," she commanded, already maneuvering the Defiant towards another command ship. They repeated the process again and again, each time sowing more chaos and destruction among the SK-3 ranks. Ships fired on each other, communication channels were flooded with panicked messages, and the once orderly fleet began to break formation. But the aliens were adapting. Each hack became more difficult, the window of opportunity shorter. Arya pushed the Defiant to its limits, her hands a blur over the controls as she ducked and weaved through the increasingly frantic enemy fire. "Captain," the AI's voice was urgent, "we've taken damage to our port stabilizers. Maneuverability is decreased by 30%. Arya cursed under her breath. They couldn't keep this up much longer. But as she looked at the tactical display, she saw that their efforts had made a difference. The SK-3 fleet was in disarray, their formation shattered. It wasn't a victory, not yet, but it was a start. "Defiant, give me an escape vector. We need to regroup and plan our next move." As the ship calculated the safest route out of the chaos they had created, Arya allowed herself a moment of hope. They had bloodied the nose of the mighty SK-3 Armada. Humanity wasn't finished yet. The Defiant shot away from the confused alien fleet, cloaking systems engaged once more. Behind them, the SK-3 scrambled to regain control of their forces, their advance on Earth temporarily halted. Arya leaned back in her seat, exhaustion threatening to overtake her. But there was no time to rest. This was only the beginning. Somehow, against all odds, she had to find a way to turn this small victory into the salvation of her species. As the stars streaked by outside her viewport, Captain Arya Chen, the last hope of humanity, began to plan her next move in the desperate battle for Earth's survival. David vs. Goliath. The Defiant drifted silently in the shadow of a massive asteroid, its stealth systems rendering it invisible to both sight and sensors. Inside the cockpit, Captain Arya Chen studied the holographic display before her. tracking the movements of the SK-3 fleet. Her initial assault had bought Earth some time, but the alien armada was regrouping. The confusion she had sown among their ranks was dissipating, replaced by a cold, mechanical efficiency that sent chills down her spine. Defiant. Analysis. Area commanded, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. The A's response was immediate. The SK-3 fleet has adapted to our previous tactics, Captain. They've implemented new security protocols in their command ship systems. Our chances of successfully repeating our earlier strategy are now less than 5%. Arya nodded grimly. She had expected as much. The SK-3 might be rigid in their thinking, but they weren't stupid. She would need a new approach. What about their advance towards Earth? They've resumed their trajectory, but at a reduced pace. Estimated time of arrival is now 96 hours. 4 days. She had bought humanity 4 days with her daring attack. It wasn't much, but it was something. Now she needed to make those 4 days count. Arya's mind raced, considering and discarding plans almost as quickly as they formed. A frontal assault was suicide. Hacking was no longer viable. What she needed was a way to chip away at their defenses, to find a weakness she could exploit. Defiant. Prepare for multiple short-range jumps. We're going hunting. Over the next 48 hours, Arya waged a guerrilla war against the vast alien fleet. The Defiant would appear seemingly out of nowhere, unleash a barrage of fire against a single ship, then disappear again before the SK-3 could react. Each attack was precisely calculated for maximum impact. Arya targeted ships on the outskirts of the fleet, communication relays, anything that might disrupt the SK-3's coordination. It was a dangerous game of cat and mouse, with Arya never staying in one place long enough for the aliens to pin her down. But it wasn't enough. For every ship she disabled, there were hundreds more to take its place. The SK-3 advance slowed, but it didn't stop. Arya could feel time slipping away, each second bringing Earth closer to its doom. After a particularly close call that left the Defiant's starboard armor scorched and smoking, Arya ordered a retreat to a nearby nebula. As the ship's automated repair systems went to work, she pored over the data they had gathered. "There has to be something we're missing," she muttered, more to herself than to the AI. "No enemy is invincible. There's always a weakness." As if in response to her words, the AI spoke up. "Captain, I've detected an anomaly in the sensor readings from our last engagement." Arya straightened in her seat, fatigue forgotten. "Show me." A new holographic display sprang to life, showing a detailed scan of a SK-3 warship. The AI highlighted a specific section of the ship's hull. "During our attack, our sensors recorded a momentary fluctuation in the enemy's shield harmonics. It lasted only a fraction of a second, but it was enough to allow one of our shots to penetrate deeper than it should have." Arya leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as she studied the data. "A weak point in their shields. Can we exploit it?" "Possibly," the AI replied. "The fluctuation appears to be tied to their shield regeneration cycle. If we could time our attacks to coincide with this cycle, we might be able to cause significant damage." For the first time in days, Arya felt a spark of hope. This was what she had been waiting for. A chink in the SK-3's seemingly impenetrable armor. How often does this cycle occur? Based on our current data, approximately every 15 minutes. However, the window of vulnerability lasts less than a second. Arya's mind was already racing, formulating a plan. "Can you predict when the next cycle will occur?" "Affirmative, Captain. But given the brevity of the window, our timing would need to be perfect." A grim smile played across Arya's lips. "Then we'll just have to be perfect." Over the next few hours, Arya worked with the Defiant's AI to refine their strategy. They would need to get in close, dangerously close, to ensure their shots hit at exactly the right moment. It would require split-second timing and nerves of steel. As they prepared to put their plan into action, a priority message came through on a secure channel. Arya's heart leaped as she recognized the encryption. It was from Earth. The message was brief, but its contents made Aria's blood run cold. The Sci-3 had begun bombardment of Earth's remaining military installations. The planet's last defenses were crumbling. They were out of time. With renewed determination, Aria set course for the Sci-3 fleet. This was no longer just about buying time. They needed a victory, something to turn the tide of the war. As they approached the massive alien armada, Aria felt a strange calm settle over her. This was what she had trained for, what the Defiant had been built for. They were humanity's last, best hope. Target acquired, the AI announced. Sci-3 battlecruiser at bearing 047. Shield cycle fluctuation predicted in 30 seconds. Aria's hands tightened on the controls. Weapons hot. Prepare to fire on my mark. The seconds ticked down, each one feeling like an eternity. The massive form of the Sci-3 battlecruiser loomed in her viewport, its weapons already turning to face them. Now, Aria shouted. The Defiant's main cannon fired, a lance of energy streaking across space. For a heart-stopping moment, Aria thought they had missed their window. Then the beam punctured the Sci-3's shields as if they weren't there, striking deep into the ship's core. The alien vessel erupted in a spectacular explosion, debris scattering in all directions. Aria allowed herself a moment of exultation before reality set in. They had done it. They had destroyed a Sci-3 capital ship, but there were still thousands more. Next target, she commanded, already maneuvering the Defiant through the chaos. Over the next hours, Aria struck again and again. Each time, the Defiant's weapons found their mark during that split second of vulnerability. Sci-3 ships fell one after another, unable to defend against an attack they couldn't anticipate. But the aliens were learning, adapting. Each attack became more difficult, the Sci-3 ships clustering together for protection, their return fire becoming more accurate. Just as Aria was considering a tactical retreat, a new ship appeared on her sensors. It was massive, dwarfing even the largest Sci-3 battlecruisers. The AI's analysis was grim. Captain, I'm detecting a Sci-3 command ship. Energy readings suggest it's the fleet's flagship. Aria's eyes narrowed as she studied the behemoth. This had to be where the Sci-3 commander was coordinating the invasion from. If they could take it out. Defiant, plot and intercept course. We're taking the fight to their leader. As the Defiant sped towards its most dangerous confrontation yet, Aria couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction. They had found a way to hurt the Sci-3, to make them bleed. Now it was time to cut off the head of the snake. The massive form of the Sci-3 flagship filled her viewport, bristling with weapons. Somewhere on that ship was the alien commander, the one responsible for the destruction of her world. Aria's hands tightened on the controls. Let's finish this, she whispered, as the Defiant plunged into the heart of the enemy fleet. Turning the tide. The space around the Sci-3 flagship erupted into chaos as the Defiant weaved through a storm of enemy fire. Aria's hands danced across the controls, guiding her ship through impossible maneuvers that pushed the very limits of its design. Shield fluctuation in the flagship detected, the AI announced. Window opening in 5, 4, 3. Aria gritted her teeth, lining up her shot. Fire. The Defiant's main cannon roared to life, its energy beams slicing through the momentary gap in the flagship's defenses. The massive alien vessel shuddered under the impact, but its immense bulk absorbed the damage. Minimal effect. Captain, the AI reported. The flagship's armor is significantly thicker than standard Sci-3 vessels. Aria cursed under her breath. They couldn't keep this up forever. Already, enemy ships were converging on their position, threatening to box them in. As she prepared for another attack run, a new alert blared through the cockpit. Captain, I'm detecting a power surge in the flagship. They appear to be charging a weapon of unprecedented magnitude. Aria's blood ran cold as she saw the readings. Whatever the Sci-3 were powering up, it was big enough to vaporize the Defiant in a single shot, and possibly take out a good chunk of Earth's remaining defenses. In that moment, Arya made a decision that would change the course of the war. Defiant, prepare for emergency teleport. Target, Skithri flagship. There was a pause, almost as if the AI was stunned. Captain, the risks of teleporting onto an enemy vessel air. Noted and ignored. Arya cut in. We're out of options. If we can't destroy that ship from the outside, we'll have to do it from within. As the AI began the teleport sequence, Arya strapped on a compact emergency suit and checked her sidearm. The plan was insane, borderline suicidal, but it was the only chance they had. Teleport ready, the AI announced. Captain, good luck. Arya nodded, took a deep breath, and gave the command. Energize. The world dissolved around her in a shimmer of light. When it reformed, Arya found herself in a dimly lit alien corridor. The air was thick and humid, filled with an acrid smell that made her grateful for her suit's air filtration. I'm in, she whispered, activating her suit's comm link to the Defiant. Beginning infiltration. Moving swiftly and silently, Arya made her way deeper into the Skithri flagship. The ship's interior was a maze of organic-looking corridors and pulsating biomechanical interfaces. It was like being inside a living organism rather than a spaceship. As she navigated through the alien vessel, Arya's mind raced. She needed to find a way to disable the flagship's weapons and, if possible, gather intel that could turn the tide of the war. But with every step, she risked discovery. Captain, the AI's voice came through her comm, distorted by interference. I'm detecting a large power source 2 levels below your current position. It may be the ship's central processing core. Arya nodded, even though the AI couldn't see her. Understood. I'm on my way. She found an access shaft and began to descend, her suit's gravity manipulators allowing her to move swiftly and silently. As she neared her target, the air seemed to thicken, filled with an electric charge that made her skin tingle even through her suit. Finally, she emerged into a vast chamber. At its center stood a towering pillar of pulsating energy, surrounded by what looked like organic computer terminals. This had to be the ship's brain. Arya approached one of the terminals, her suit's systems working to interface with the alien technology. As data began to flow, her eyes widened in shock. Defiant, are you seeing this? Affirmative, Captain, the AI replied. The data suggests that the Skithri operate on a hive mind network. All their ships and soldiers are connected to this central consciousness. Arya's mind raced with the implications. This wasn't just the flagship's brain. It was the brain of the entire Skithri invasion force, if they could disrupt it. But before she could formulate a plan, a piercing alarm echoed through the chamber. She had been detected. Captain, multiple hostiles converging on your position, the AI warned. Arya drew her weapon, scanning the room for threats. I need more time. There has to be a way to use this against them. As the sound of approaching Skithri soldiers grew louder, Arya's eyes fell on what looked like a maintenance panel near the base of the energy pillar. An idea formed. Risky, potentially catastrophic, but possibly their only chance. Defiant, I'm going to attempt to overload their hive mind network, she said, her fingers already working to pry open the panel. Be ready to extract me on my signal. The AI's response was drowned out by the sound of weapon fire. The Skithri had arrived, their insectoid forms flooding into the chamber. Arya returned fire, downing several aliens as she worked feverishly to rewire the hive mind's power source. Time seemed to slow as Arya fought a two-front battle against the approaching Skithri and against the complex alien technology before her. Her suit took hits, warnings flashing across her HUD, but she pushed through the pain and kept working. Just as the Skithri were about to overwhelm her position, Arya made the final connection. The energy pillar began to pulse erratically, its glow intensifying to a blinding level. Defiant, now, Arya shouted into her comm. The world dissolved once more into light, and Arya found herself back in the Defiant's cockpit, her suit smoking and sparking from multiple hits. Get us out of here, Maximum speed, she ordered, collapsing into her seat. The Defiant shot away from the Sk-3 flagship just as the overload reached its peak. A blinding flash lit up space, followed by a shockwave that rocked the ship even at a distance. As Aria regained her bearings, she stared in awe at the scene before her. The Sk-3 fleet was in chaos. Ships drifted aimlessly or fired at random. Their coordinated assault reduced to confusion and discord. "Captain," the AI's voice was filled with what almost sounded like excitement. "The overload appears to have disrupted the Sk-3 hive mind. Their entire fleet is in disarray." Aria allowed herself a moment of triumph before the gravity of the situation set in. They had dealt the Sk-3 a major blow, but the fight wasn't over. The alien ships were still numerous, still dangerous, and Earth remained vulnerable. "Send a message to Earth Command," Aria ordered, her voice filled with determination. "Tell them the Sk-3 fleet is vulnerable. It's time to launch a counterattack." As the Defiant sped towards Earth, Aria knew that the real battle was just beginning. They had found the Sk-3's weakness, turned the tide of the war. Now they had to press their advantage before the aliens could recover. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and Aria was determined to see it through to the end. Whatever it took, whatever the cost, she would ensure that Earth, that humanity, survived. With renewed purpose, Captain Aria Chen set course for her home planet, ready to lead the charge in humanity's fight for survival. Race against time. The Defiant streaked through space, its engines pushed to their absolute limits. Inside the cockpit, Captain Aria Chen's eyes were fixed on the holographic display showing their trajectory to Earth. Every second counted now. "Status report," Aria commanded, her voice tight with tension. The AI's response was immediate. "We are operating at 118% of recommended engine capacity, Captain. At current speed, we will reach Earth in approximately 10 hours. Aria's jaw clenched. 10 hours. It felt like an eternity, knowing that every minute brought the possibility of the Sk-3 regaining control of their fragmented fleet. "What's the status of the alien Armada?" The display shifted, showing the scattered Sk-3 ships. Many were still drifting aimlessly, their hive mind connections severed. But others were beginning to regroup, forming smaller, independent clusters. "The Sk-3 are adapting," the AI reported. "While the majority of their fleet remains in disarray, approximately 30% have managed to establish localized command structures. They are slow and disorganized, but still pose a significant threat." Aria nodded grimly. She had expected as much. The Sk-3 were nothing if not resilient, but their disorganization was an opportunity, one that humanity couldn't afford to waste. "Send another message to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them to prepare every ship, every weapon we have left. When we arrive, we launch an all-out assault on the Sk-3. This is our only chance to drive them out of our system for good." As the Defiant continued its headlong rush towards Earth, Aria allowed herself a moment of reflection. The past few days felt like a lifetime. She had gone from being a test pilot on a shakedown cruise to humanity's last hope against an overwhelming alien invasion. The weight of responsibility was enormous, but she refused to buckle under it. Too much was at stake. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alarm. The AI's voice was urgent. "Captain, we have multiple Sk-3 signatures on an intercept course. It appears a group of their ships have regained enough coordination to mount a pursuit." Aria's hands flew over the controls, bringing up the tactical display. A cluster of Sk-3 warships was indeed closing in fast, their formation ragged but purposeful. "How many?" she asked, already calculating potential strategies. 12 ships, varying classes. Their current trajectory will intercept us in approximately 20 minutes. Aria's mind raced. They couldn't afford to be delayed, but neither could they risk leading this enemy group directly to Earth's remaining defenses. Defiant, plot an evasive course. Let's see if we can lose them in that nearby asteroid field. The ship banked hard, veering off its direct course to Earth, and plunging into a dense cluster of asteroids. Aria's hands danced across the controls, guiding the Defiant through the treacherous field with a combination of skill and calculated recklessness. Behind them, the Ski-3 ships followed, their larger bulk making it difficult for them to navigate the tight spaces between the asteroids. Several collided with the space rocks, their shields flaring as they took damage. But the aliens were learning, adapting to the chase. The remaining ships spread out, trying to box in the Defiant and cut off potential escape routes. "They're hurting us," Aria muttered, recognizing the tactic, trying to force us into a kill zone. She couldn't let that happen. In a split-second decision, Aria cut the Defiant's main engines and activated the maneuvering thrusters, sending the ship into a tight spin. As they rotated, she fired the main cannons, not aiming at the Ski-3 ships directly but at the asteroids around them. The space rocks exploded into clouds of debris, momentarily blinding the alien vessel's sensors. Aria seized the opportunity, gunning the engines back to full power and shooting through a narrow gap in their formation. "Nice try," she said through gritted teeth as the Defiant burst free of the asteroid field. The confused Ski-3 ships left in their wake. But their reprieve was short-lived. As they cleared the field, new alerts blared through the cockpit. "Captain, I'm detecting a massive energy buildup from the largest Ski-3 vessel," the AI warned. "They appear to be charging a long-range weapon of unprecedented power." Aria's blood ran cold as she saw the readings. Whatever the Ski-3 were powering up, it was big enough to vaporize the Defiant in a single shot, and possibly take out a good chunk of Earth's remaining defenses if it reached the planet. "Evasive maneuvers," she shouted, throwing the ship into a series of wild turns and loops. The space around them lit up as the Ski-3 weapon fired, a massive beam of energy that cut through the void like a scythe. Aria's desperate maneuvers saved them from a direct hit, but the edge of the beam clipped the Defiant's starboard side. Alarms blared as systems throughout the ship overloaded. "Starboard engine offline," the AI reported, its voice eerily calm amid the chaos. "Shield generators at 30% capacity. Hull breach detected in sectors 7 through 9. Aria fought to keep the ship stable as it tumbled through space. "Reroute all available power to engines and shields. Seal off the breached sectors." As the Defiant limped away from the battle, Aria knew they were in trouble. Their speed was severely reduced, and the Ski-3 were closing in once more. They wouldn't survive another hit from that superweapon. But as she prepared for what might be their final stand, a new alert caught her attention. A transmission, coming in on an old, almost forgotten frequency. "This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force to unidentified vessel. We've detected your battle with the Ski-3. Hold on, reinforcements are incoming." Aria's heart leaped at the sound of her father's voice. She hadn't known if he had survived the initial invasion. "Dad, this is Captain Aria Chen of the Defiant. We have critical information about the Ski-3 fleet. Request immediate assistance and rendezvous coordinates." As she spoke, new signatures appeared on her sensors. A small but formidable fleet of Earth ships decloaked nearby, their weapons already firing on the pursuing Ski-3 vessels. "Coordinates received, Aria," her father's voice came through again, thick with emotion and pride. "Get that information to Earth Command. We'll hold off the aliens." Aria wanted to protest, to join the fight, but she knew her father was right. The information she carried could turn the tide of the entire war. She had to get to Earth. With a heavy heart but renewed determination, Aria set course for the coordinates provided by Earth Command. As the sounds of battle faded behind them, she silently wished her father and his fleet good luck. The Defiant, battered but unbroken, limped towards Earth. Aria knew that the real battle, the fight for humanity's very survival, was just beginning. But for the first time since this war started, she allowed herself to feel a glimmer of hope. They had a chance, a small one, but a chance nonetheless, and Aria was determined to make it count, no matter the cost. As Earth grew larger in her view screen, Captain Area Chen steeled herself for the final confrontation that would determine the fate of her species. Humanity's triumph. The battered Defiant limped into Earth's orbit, its hull scared and systems barely functioning. In the cockpit, Captain Area Chen let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. They had made it, against all odds. But the sight that greeted her was far from triumphant. Earth, once a beautiful blue marble, now bore the scars of the Sc3 invasion. Vast swathes of the planet were obscured by smoke and dust, the aftermath of alien bombardments. What remained of humanity's orbital defenses hung in pieces, a grim testament to the ferocity of the invaders. Captain, the AI's voice cut through Aria's somber observations, we're being hailed by Earth Command. Aria straightened in her seat, pushing aside her fatigue and sorrow. There would be time for mourning later. Now, they had a war to win. Put them through, she ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the grim face of General Tara Wong, the head of Earth's remaining military forces. Captain Chen. The general's voice was taut with stress, but tinged with hope. Your father informed us of your arrival. He says you have critical information about the Sc3. Aria nodded, her fingers already dancing across the controls to transmit the data she'd gathered. General, we've discovered a critical weakness in the Sc3 fleet. They operate on a hive mind network, which we managed to disrupt. Right now, their forces are scattered and disorganized. This is our chance to strike back. General Wong's eyes widened as she processed the information. This could change everything. But Captain, you should know, we're down to our last reserves. Every ship, every weapon we have left is already committed to defending what remains of our planet. Aria's jaw set with determination. Then we'll have to make every shot count. General, I recommend an immediate all-out assault on the Sc3 fleet. Hit them hard while they're still reeling. If we can take out their remaining command ships, we might be able to drive them out of our system for good. There was a moment of tense silence as General Wong considered the plan. Finally, she nodded. Agreed. We'll launch everything we've got. Captain Chen, despite the condition of your ship, we need you out there. Your experience fighting the Sc3 could make the difference. Understood, General, Aria replied, already running pre-flight checks. The Defiant might be wounded, but she's still got some fight left in her. As the transmission ended, Aria turned her attention to her ship's eye. What's our status? We are operating at 47% capacity, Captain, the AI reported. Shields are minimal, and our main cannon is offline. However, maneuvering thrusters and secondary weapons are functional. Aria nodded grimly. It wasn't ideal, but it would have to do. Prep all remaining weapons and divert any spare power to engines. We're going back into the fight. The Defiant joined the ragtag fleet of Earth's remaining ships, a mix of military vessels, retrofitted civilian crafts, and even a few ancient museum pieces brought back into service. It wasn't much compared to the might of the Sc3 Armada, but it was all humanity had left. As they approached the scattered Sc3 fleet, Aria's tactical display lit up with friendly signatures. Ships were emerging from hidden bases on Mars and the moons of Jupiter, squadrons that had been held in reserve for this final desperate gambit. General Wong's voice crackled over the comm. All ships, this is it. The fate of our species hangs in the balance. Fight with everything you've got. For Earth. The human fleet surged forward, catching the disorganized Sc3 by surprise. Aria led a squadron of fast attack craft, darting between the lumbering alien ships and striking at vulnerable points she had discovered during her earlier battles. The space around Earth erupted into chaos. Energy beams and missiles crisscrossed the void, explosions blooming like deadly flowers among the stars. The Sc3, still struggling to coordinate without their hive mind, fell into disarray. But the aliens were far from defeated. As the battle raged on, Aria noticed a shift in the Sc3 tactics. A massive ship, even larger than the flagship she had infiltrated, was moving to the center of their formation. General, Area called over the comm. I think I've identified their new command ship. If we can take it out, we might be able to end this once and for all. Understood, Captain, General Wong replied. But our forces are spread thin. We don't have anything heavy enough to breach its defenses. Area's mind raced, considering and discarding plans in split seconds. Then her eyes fell on the damage report for the Defiant, and a desperate idea formed. General, I have a plan. But I'll need a squadron to clear me a path to that command ship. There was a pause before the general responded, her voice heavy with understanding. Approved, Captain. May your ancestors guide you. Area took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. Defiant, set a course for this K3 command ship. Divert all power to engines and forward shields. As the Defiant shot towards its target, a squadron of Earth's best pilots formed up around her, carving a path through the K3 defenses. Area's hands were steady on the controls, her focus absolute as she dodged incoming fire and weaved through the chaos of battle. They were almost to the command ship when a lucky shot from a K3 cruiser took out the Defiant's shields. Warnings blared through the cockpit as systems failed across the ship. Impact with K3 command ship in 30 seconds, the AI announced, its voice calm even in the face of imminent destruction. Area smiled grimly. Initiate reactor overload. Let's make this count. As the massive form of the K3 command ship filled her viewport, Area thought of Earth, of her father, of all that humanity had endured and achieved. They deserved a future among the stars. For Earth, she whispered, closing her eyes as the Defiant slammed into the alien vessel. The explosion was visible from the surface of Earth, a new star briefly outshining all others. The K3 command ship was torn apart, taking a significant portion of their fleet with it. In the aftermath, the remaining K3 ships fell into complete disarray. Without central command, they became easy prey for Earth's forces. Some fled, jumping to hyperspace in a desperate bid to escape. Others fought on, but without coordination or purpose. Hours later, as the last K3 ship was driven from Earth's solar system, the comm channels erupted with cheers and cries of victory. Humanity had done the impossible. They had faced extinction and emerged triumphant. On the bridge of the Earth Defense Force flagship, General Wong stood in silence, watching the celebration unfold around her. Her eyes were fixed on the spot where the Defiant had made its final, heroic stand. "Thank you, Captain Chen," she murmured. "Your sacrifice will never be forgotten." As the remnants of Earth's fleet began the long process of rebuilding, a new chapter in human history was beginning. They had faced the darkness of the void and the threat of annihilation, and they had survived. Stronger, more united, and with a fierce determination to claim their place among the stars. The K3 invasion had sought to end humanity. Instead, it had forged them into something greater. As the first rays of sunlight peeked over the scared but unbroken Earth, it heralded not just a new day, but a new era for mankind.